last 6. So when you walk in love, you fulfilling the law. And watch this, to walk in love is to walk in God, because God is love. Somebody better talk to me. See, it don't justify, but it does benefit. You get where I'm going with that? Come on now, watch this. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be according to grace. Therefore, it is of what?
Faith.
That it might be according to
Grace.
That's God's riches at Christ's expense. Let's talk about Christ's expense right here. So that the promise might be sure to all the seed. Notice it doesn't say seeds, but seed. Why seed? Because it was one seed. That seed was Christ. See, now because of him, our life is hidden in him, positionally. That's why when you look in the New Testament, everywhere you see the prepositional statement, in him, in he, in whom, in Christ, you underline it because it's talking about you. And what it says you can have, it's a promise. Who it says you are, it's a promise. What it says you can do, it's a promise. It's showing you who you are. It's your manual, your statement of who you are now that your life is hidden in him. So you underline it and you go over it. You commit it to memory because it's giving you a depiction of who you are. So you ain't got to go through. Watch this. Not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. So what he's doing is he's conjoining 2 different groups of people. See, once in the Old Testament existed 2 groups of people. It was the Gentiles and it was the who? The Jews. A Jew is a a Gentile is a non-Jew. That's all Gentile means. Non-Jew. So if you was not a Jew, you was a Gentile. I don't care what color you was, what descendantry you was a Gentile.
So what made the people Jews, like a Jewish person wasn't based off like where they lived, and what made them?
First of all, what the name Jew means.
Judah? Or Judah?
That's right. It's Judah. Now backtrack a little more. Why does it call it Judah instead of Israel?
Because the northern and southern kings had split up. One of them, I believe it was the northern, started worshiping pagan gods. I think that started in the first Kings. And from there,
You said the northern. Say that
northern
again.
and southern kings got divided. When is it Manasseh? No, it was not Manasseh, because that's a tribe.
The northern and southern kings didn't get divided because of kings. It got divided because of who?
No, because of Solomon.
Because of Solomon.
Because of Solomon. And God said he would leave 2 tribes. He'd get 10 tribes over. The 2 of them he gonna leave, but the 2, Benjamin and Judah, joined together. So they were the ones who stayed. They were the remnant for God. So that's why the Jews became Judah, but Israel was still Israel, but most of Israel didn't worship.
All right, let's get specific with it. You did good. Now I'm going to clean it up. Literally what happened is because of Solomon's disobedience, God separated the kingdoms. He gave Rehoboam, which was Solomon's son, to have the southern kingdom, which was Judah, where Jerusalem actually was, where the temple of God was, and Benjamin as well. He's right about that. The 10 northern tribes he gave to Solomon's, at the time, good servant, who was serving the Lord, Jeroboam. But as soon as he became solo dolo king, he turned evil and started helping the people to commit idolatry, turning their backs against God. So when you look at the northern kingdom, all you see is evil kings. And that's where Ahab comes from the northern kingdom. They were the first ones to go into captivity. 722 BC, the Assyrians were the world power at the time. And they took the northern kingdom into captivity. Hezekiah was the king at that time. And so they used to make threats to Hezekiah, saying, we're going to take you over. As a matter of fact, they even sent people to speak in their own language, telling them, we're going to take you over, which made the people fearful. So that's when Hezekiah prayed to God and said, hey, These people trying to come and get us. Now, Hezekiah at the time was a righteous king. Matter of fact, the Bible says it wasn't the king that trusted in the Lord more than Hezekiah. And so what did God do? He sent the angel who killed 185,000 Assyrians in one night. They backed up off of Judah. They backed up off of them. So God gave them peace. But Hezekiah, and here's something, you got to get there to understand where I'm going with this. Hezekiah, race was finished. So God told Isaiah, go tell Hezekiah to get his household in order. Because he's about to go home. About to take him home. He's about to die. Hezekiah started crying and he faced the wall. He said, no, man. I've been good. I've been a trusting king. I did everything you asked me, Lord. No, please don't take my life. But his race was finished. Sometimes you got to know when to let go. Because your race is finished. But he refused. And he messed up his life testimony. Because God told Isaiah, tell him to extend his life 15 more years. Go get this polish leaf and put it on that boil. And he did. And when he got healed, the kings from the north came in and they commended him. They said, man, you know, your God blessed you. And so as a result, what did Hezekiah do? He got prideful. And he took him through the house of God and showed him all the treasures of the Lord. And the Lord told Hezekiah, he said, because you did that, them same kings going to come through and they're going to clean this house out. They're going to take all the treasuries out. Hezekiah's last 12 years of his life, he ruled dually with his son Manasseh, who ruled Judah, the southern kingdom, out of the longest stretch of any kings of the southern kingdom. Now, the southern kingdom has some evil kings, but they have majority good kings. But there was none more evil than Manasseh, which was Hezekiah's son. It's Chronicles and Kings. Kings only depicts Manasseh's evil reign. But Chronicles show Manasseh's, because they were both, they chronological, they chronologized.
Well, basically in Kings, they were saying, like, is it not written in the book of Chronicles? So they shortened it up.
No, what it was, everything that a king did, they also chronologized. They put it, no, not chronological order, but they journalized, let me say it like that. They journalized. Kings is a historical book, period. But the chronicalization of what happened is in the book of Chronicles. So it's not that they shortened it, but it's two separate purposes for those books. You need to understand that because you're going to understand why Kings only talked about Manasseh being very wicked. Chronicles talked about Manasseh being wicked, but it also talked about God's redemption. Because what Manasseh did is, after he sacrificed his sons to the fire, after he did all these wicked things, God, through his mercy, had Manasseh locked up. The Assyrians who were in power came and they snatched Manasseh up and grabbed him up by hooks and put him through his nose and led him off to Babylon, imprisoned for 12 years. You have to look at Jewish history to know how long he was actually in there. But he was in there for 12 years. During that time, he implored of the Lord. He asked for forgiveness. God restored him. He came back to Jerusalem and he undid everything that he had previously done. The Bible shows God's mercy, but yet it emphasizes in Kings his idolatry. The degradation that he went to, the depths and the lows that he went to, that he even killed his own sons to recognize a false God. He built idols in the house of God, established abominations. Why? Because he seen a righteous father who had fallen towards the end of his reign. When in fact, if his father would have went home, he would have maintained a good testimony as being the most trusted king. And his son would have had a fighting chance. But see, here's the problem. Sometimes we pick up bad traits from our parents. And that's what he did. Because his father was prideful. Hezekiah had actually started getting beside himself. And so because of Hezekiah and not Manasseh, God brought judgment to the people. And so when the Babylonians took them over in 605 BC, out of all the other tribes, the only ones that came out was the Jews. In 536 BC, when King Cyrus had wrote the decree and said anybody that want to go worship their God, they can. The Medes and Persians took over the Babylonians. And they were like, the Medes and Persians were people who allowed freedom of religion. So when they released them to go back to worship their gods. Now watch this. When they came out, only one tribe came out, and that was Judah. So to short Judah up, you got Jews. And what God is showing us, he constantly keep reducing numbers, what he calls a remnant. And that's what we have. Out of those 12 tribes, we had a remnant come out. So they all classified by Judah. Who Christ come from? Judah. What Judah mean? Praise. Who went into the, watch this, who went into the promised land? Judah. They went in first. What is God saying? In order to get into that promised land, you got to come in with praise. Little Reverend, y'all get that later. So, watch this. So this is why we know them as being Jews. Alright? So watch this. So what you have is two groups of people, Jews and Gentiles. What made you a Jew is either natural birth or proselytization. What was proselytization? Meaning you was a Gentile that wanted to convert to Judaism. So you literally received a form of a baptism. And you made the confession of the Shema, which was, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That was their confession of faith. And you then received the circumcision if you was a man. And you vowed to uphold the law of God. This was called being a proselyte.
Does Israel believe in the triune God, like Father's word? They just believe in the Father?
They just believe in a mono God. God didn't reveal himself as Father until the New Testament. Unless there's what's called Messianic Jews. Then you got Jews that, it's so many different sects of them. You got some of them that only observe the first 5 books of Moses. Those were Sadducees. It's still people that follow that to today. The Pharisees believed in the whole completion. And that's why if you notice when Jesus was questioned by them, it was certain questions that they would ask. It was based off of what books they held true to. Sadducees only held true to the first 5 books of Moses. That's why they didn't believe in the resurrection. They didn't believe in angels. Pharisees believed in the whole totality of the Old Testament. So he dealt with them where they were at, which gives us a further revelation that we need to know where people were in order for us to deal with them appropriately to witness to them. Because you mess around and you be talking to somebody that don't even believe that God is the creator. And you talking about, are you saved? No. What you mean saved from what? So that's why we got to talk to people and inquire of them where they are. Sidebar. But anyway, so what happens is based off of these two different groups of people, the Bible is showing us that through Abraham, he identified with both. Because before he entered into the covenant with God through circumcision, which was established in Genesis chapter 17 at the age of 99, what did God first account him as being or having the right standing with? Was by his faith. So it covered the Gentile as well. So the fulfillment of that is seen in Romans chapter 4. So watch this, verse 16. Therefore it is of faith that it might be according to grace, so that the promise might be sure to all the seed, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, in the presence of him whom he believed, God, who gives life to the dead, and watch this, calls those things which do not exist as though they did. Get this revelation. That's why God changed his name. Abram meant exalted father. Abraham meant father